Hey, everybody, welcome back to Roosters on Olentangy River Road. This is Lettermen Live, brought to you by our good friends at Roosters. It's a fun, casual conversation. Ohio State and the Buckeyes are back in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. I promise we're going to talk about more football this week than last week, but we're also not going to stick to sports entirely. We can't right now. It just still wouldn't be fair to make that point. There's a lot more going on in the world. We know that. We're going to try and find the right balance. I'm not sure what it is, but we'll figure it out as we go. We got Anthony Schlegel attacking and dominating right here. All gas, no brakes. Doug Worthington back with us again. Looking really fancy this week. I mean, dapper. He's hiding the guns underneath. I don't know about that.
Initials on the sleeves. I mean, just, a little something.
And the quarterback, Justin Zwick, down there.
JC.
So before we get into what maybe Ohio State can expect as they ease back into these workouts at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, last week, the team did a number of things to address the stuff that we've been talking about in Black Lives Matter and the movement continuing to, gain a little maybe momentum. C.J. Saunders gets arrested as part of a curfew violation, taking part in the protest. That's a big part of it. Tough Borland and his girlfriend helped organize the Kneel for 9 on Tuesday night. The whole team got together. The Leadership Council put out that video. I had over 700,000 views after just 2 days with all of them taking that message, black and white, real basic. So, we talked about that. What will the message be for the team within the locker room? But you're seeing Ohio State really step out and use that platform, and you can't help but be impressed by that.
Well said. I mean, I agree. When it comes down to this upcoming situation as a season or lack thereof, I mean, football is kind of set aside when it comes down to this particular moment. So many different creeds and ethnicities on that football team, and like we said before, it's a melting pot. So to have something in this type of injustice to happen across the globe and to have happened for so many years. I mean, Kaepernick happened 4 years ago, taking a knee, and then you got somebody, dying from a knee. So that 9 minutes was very monumental. I give Coach Day so much credit about having those guys being in the forefront of what's going on. And it's just one of those messages that I know we're resonating in the Buckeye community, and 700,000. So the whole country is getting a little bit of a piece of what they believe in. Yeah,
for as bad as social media is, in my opinion, in certain ways,
right?
In this instance, it's great because it gives all these kids, guys on the team, an outlet to say, this is what we're doing, this is how we're attacking this, and this is, our plan, and it gets it out right away, So, I mean, back in our day, we'd have had to try and call News Channel 4 or like, hey, Steve Snap, can I get somebody down here to do this? And he would have said no, or, but it just gives them that, way to get out there and show people what they're doing and what's important to them. And wow, it's just, it's incredible to see what the team has come together on their own kind of and said, this is where we are and this is what our stance is.
Yeah, that video too, Schlegs, before you jump in there, that was all team driven. That was not Ryan Day say, hey, let's just do this for fun.
Yeah, it's not, hey, read this sheet. It's, hey, you guys get on here.
Fake activism. The players wrote the script. They all shot that on their phones and sent that in to Zach Schwartz, the creative director. He put it together, and they asked Ryan Day to finish that, to be part of it. But this has been a player-driven thing, and I think that some coaches around the country, Clemson comes to mind, Florida State last week, they're finding out that you can't really fake this.
No. No, absolutely not. And, we've heard a lot of guys, former players, current players, speak out about it. And Joshua Perry, I was listening to him yesterday. And, as I'm driving, and my wife and I had a conversation today about the same issue. And that's what we should be doing.
Right.
Right. And our athletes are taking that stance to keep the dialogue going. Right. And then I had somebody, ask me like, well, hey, you know what I teach my kids to respect all people. Right. And guess what? That's what they do. But it's not even about respect. Right. To me, it's all about the heart disposition. And what I love about this is you're seeing the players' hearts at Ohio State be able to express that. Because here's the deal. I can respect my boss, but in my heart, I hate my boss.
Well said.
Right. Like that is the, that is one of, I can respect my coach and play for my coach, but in my heart, I dislike him or resent him. Right. So this goes back to not about respect, but about the heart and how you view people. right? And for that conversation to be continued through what our guys are doing, that is a testament to the program that is The Ohio State University, the coaching staff. And I think there was a offensive lineman whose parents tweeted out about how even during the pandemic and also during this current situation, they are reaching out to the families as well and talking about how they're helping their son through this time, right? And guiding them and giving them and wisdom and supporting them. Like, that's what it's about.
Right.
And you see Ohio State in the forefront of that. Makes you proud to be a Buckeye.
I like how they just put the mac and cheese bites right.
Right. You know what?
I know we're having a serious conversation.
Schlegel special.
Fun, casual, but it's serious and even serious now as this goes on.
It's going to be hot. Be careful.
I don't mean to break it up that way, but it's just we're so entrenched here that the mac and cheese bites go straight to you. Doug, what stood out to me, I talked to CJ Saunders last week about sort of his 48 hours, and I don't want to make it, this might sound wrong, I'm not trying to say it this way, but if you can't have the entire team, and CJ Saunders and Tough Borland don't look like everybody else,
right.
But if you don't have that sort of support coming from someone who maybe looks like me or Schlegs or Justin, the movement probably going to run into some resistance, right? You got to have some help from this side.
Yeah, for sure, and that's what it's all about. When it comes down to, obviously we know as an African American man on this panel, to have to live with it day in and day out, it is a blessing, but it's also at times is a curse when it comes down to seeing those red and blues behind you and just the stigma that it is that's tied around the community. We have to realize that it's going to take a collective effort to be able to get real progress. Looking at what Malcolm Jenkins, my teammate, the guy who came in with me from Piscataway, New Jersey. I'm from Buffalo, New York. Him dealing with a teammate in the locker room, renowned figure into Drew Brees, and just the way that he put the flag in front of the situation that we're really at hand with is exactly what we're talking about. The dialogue it's not ever have been about disrespecting the military, disrespecting a flag. It's all about, the movement and the things that's been happening to be able to get those type of remarks. To get those real feelings out, we have to do something that is a little bit out of the ordinary. When it comes down to looting, when it comes down to breaking things and fires and things of that nature, it's not about people wanting to go in there and get clothes or to steal something it's about the fact that they're hurting and they're crying out in a way that they don't know how to express themselves. So we need to come together as a collective. We need to have black, brown, white, yellow, green, be able to, see that there's some injustice. There's some things that's been going around in this country since day one, since we were brought over here, that hasn't always panned out in our favor. How do we come together and get some justice and move forward in the right direction?
Yeah, I'm gonna touch on that. I've always said, you overcome evil with good. So I'm a small business owner. Like, you would literally set me back or potentially ruin me if you came into my shop, stole all my stuff. Like, I'd be set back now. It would devastate me, and right. I don't understand. But the biggest thing, even as this goes on, it is, and I've talked about the heart disposition and being real and having real conversations. Heart audit, mind audit. I don't drive with my wallet in the front of my truck. I don't have to clean out my truck because if somebody pulled me over, or regardless, if I go in somewhere, they're profiling me or thinking I could potentially be doing something dangerous or wrong, right? Like, I don't have that. I'm not worried where I live that potentially somebody's going to come in and raid me and somebody gets shot and killed. Like, I don't worry about those things, but my brothers and sisters do. And that should be on my heart, right? So there's a lot of different ways that we have to be able to support one another. I've always said my thing is heart, mind audit. You have to, behavior C is either taught or allowed, so we have to teach the right behavior and have open dialogue. And guess what? If you permit it, you promote it. That's the number one thing. And we can't promote racism of any kind, wherever it is, right? So we all have a role to play, but we all got to play our role. And guess what? Everybody's moving down the same lane. And some people are going to have to be out there on the front, where we can lift them up in prayer and say, hey, guess what? I got your back. I support what you're doing, right? So, we all have to be able to go do that. Yeah,
and it seems like this thing probably won't slow down at all, Jay-Z, for the Buckeyes, because they put this stuff last week together on Zoom. Now they're back in the Woody together, and I promise we're going to talk about that. But now that's going to be a lot easier for them to organize, to participate, whatever they want to do.
You have your team meetings. I mean,
Yeah.
you get in there together and, let everybody have a chance. Hey, get up. If you got something on your heart that you want to say and address the team and, make sure that everybody knows how you feel, that will give them the ability to do so. Just another thing on that social media with these guys coming out, with the young kids today, everybody has a cell phone. These third graders have cell phones. They have Twitter. They have social media. They have, so to see their role models at Ohio State coming out and making these stands and talking about this stuff, you hope that resonates down and they start seeing it. And so you start getting this younger generation kind of thinking about all the stuff that maybe we don't think about all the time,
right?
Unless a situation like this happens. And so I think what they're doing is huge, and I think they're going to continue to do it because of how well it went over. How much people appreciate what they're doing and what they're saying, and I think the younger generation is going to see that. You hope that tidal wave just kind of takes over, and everybody who maybe doesn't think about it, they start seeing, oh, my heroes at Ohio State are talking about this. They're coming out and making sure people are thinking about it. I want to do that. I want to have that same mindset as I get older, right. And I want to follow along in their footsteps. To continue this. Not just in times where there's unrest, but every single day that they step out that door.
I'm not saying that Ohio State is the only school that is doing this, but even when you look at the NFL. Doug brought up Jenkins. Michael Thomas is now, one of the most outspoken people that you're ever going to find on social media for this. Right. I mean, we talk a lot. We cover Ohio State. We know what goes on at the Woody and the amount of impressive young men coming through that program, but it's really carrying on and having that impact at the NFL too. And it's eye-opening. I mean, Ohio State seems to really be doing it right.
Yeah. I mean, you look at those guys' platforms, man, and they sell T-shirts, they do fundraisers, they do things for the communities, so they know their footprint in the marketplace. So when somebody that is as endeared as a Drew Brees, and we all make mistakes, we're all human. I'm pretty sure he didn't have any malice on what he really meant, but the main thing is the main thing in this particular moment, and that's what those guys wanted him to kind of realize and come out to the forefront, because he is even more renowned and revered in some lights, and his movement. His voice would have just struck even more of a coherence and just a brilliance in this particular moment. And he missed that opportunity. You can't get those things back. He recanted today and he said, hey, this is what I meant. This is what I was kind of going at. But, to make the main thing and make, this situation anything but the injustice that's been going on in the black community is just doing it wrong. And again, we could talk about the looting, but the rhetoric should be, is instead of, man, we care that black people are dying, but you guys should not be looting. It should be more hey, people are stealing and looting a little bit, but black people need to be, taken care of, and they shouldn't be dying. It's the way you say things and the way you present it that really makes the story and really gets people's heart and captivate them. And when you have a platform like these Buckeyes do, they go out and they make it happen, and I'm proud of those guys.
All right, there's no easy segue out of topics like this, so we're going to take a break on Lettermen Live here, brought to you by Roosters. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about some football.
Roosters is one of the unique companies that we deal with. They're involved in everything we do, from our personal foundation to also the Cancer Research Fund. And that's from the Buckeye Cruise from Cancer to all the events leading up to the Buckeye Cruise.
They donate back to different organizations that are near and dear to their heart. And we're so fortunate to have been with Roosters now for a long, long time.
All the folks at Roosters are just genuinely kind folks, and they want to make a difference.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
All right, welcome back into Roosters. It's that time of year. Not every school opening workouts at the same time, guys, but Ohio State has this opportunity, now to start bringing in 9-10 guys at a time. Schlegs, I've been asking you all along, what are these going to look like? How is it going to work if you're going to ease them back in and you've got limitations in the Woody and you're spreading them out? I know you've been talking to all your guys that you still know over there, organizing workouts. Mickey Marotti, I'm sure, has a plan for this.
Trying to talk to him.
What is it?
They're kind of mum.
He's a busy guy.
Busy right now.
What are these going to look like? I mean, this obviously they're voluntary. Not everybody's back in Columbus quite yet.
I know. You didn't do the air quotes.
I know that's funny for you guys. I should have winked at the camera. But this is what players have sort of wanted too. We've heard about how the guys that wanted to be back, they all want to be around their teammates. But I'm just curious what you think they're going to look like for the next 5-6 weeks.
Well, didn't I just see something where like Oklahoma State potentially had two guys that had COVID?
Yeah, one of their I think their linebacker participated in protests in Tulsa and then said that when he tested to come back, he was asymptomatic and tested positive. Like, this is going to happen.
Right, no doubt. So, I mean, like the things that you're going to go through and look at, like, I don't know how they're going to test them, right? But I mean, you're going to have, just like everybody's out there been working, right? That has been essential, right? You're going to go take their temperature, right? Have you had any type of symptoms? And they're going to come into the building. They're going to have them spaced out. Again, I don't really know. I can only speculate about, there might be 20, 25 guys able to be permitted in a workout session in the Woody Hayes. I mean, it's a little bit crazy, right, considering how big the Woody Hayes is. But guess what? They got 28 racks, right? Double-sided half racks. One side's full, one side's half. So you got 28 racks. Everybody could work in their own rack, right? So there's probably going to be a thing where, hey, we can't have spotters. So you're going to be confined to your rack. Everything you do is going to be within the rack. It's obviously not going to be the weights that they could potentially have because, again, you can't have spotters, right? So there's a safety issue when it comes to that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, number one thing, and I talked about it earlier a couple episodes ago, is the fact that Urban Meyer said this. It's not about winning, the preseason. It's about getting ready for week one. So they're going to have to ooze them in, and I'm sure you can attest to this because you're a high school football coach, giving your time, energy, and effort in Upper Arlington. But, like, kids are going to come in and they're going to puke during the dynamic warm-up. Like, that's going to happen, right? And as I've been going through this COVID pandemic, I'm talking to my own children. I'm like, listen, here's why you have to work on your craft while we're doing it, right? So when you go back, you have a baseline because you want your team to succeed, and they can only be as successful as where you all start collectively together, right? And then when you come in as a team, right, it's to compete within the team so that you can compete as a team, right? So one, you got to ooze them in. You got to see where everybody's baseline is. Then you progress them, not to win July, not to win August, but to be ready for week one. And then they're going to have the other parameters. How do you feel? Subjective surveys. They have wearables and stuff that they use probably on a daily basis that they will. And there's a lot of things going on right now with certain wearables that can actually help predict onset of COVID or just sicknesses. I'm sure Ohio State will be utilizing some of that type of technology to be, proactive on it. But like, you're going to have all these different things that come in: surveys, temperature check, limiting the amount of people in the building at one time, standard operating procedures of how you clean the weight room, along with being able to be outside and run. Everybody's going to have different parameters. I know that Ohio State, because of our facility and how big everything is, it might have to be sometimes at the beginning, maybe they only work out outside only, right? And then they ooze back in as the parameters get less to go back into the weight room. So at the end of the day, here's what I do know. I know you have the Associate Athletic Director for The Ohio State University that oversees 36 sports, Mickey Marotti, smart cat, knows what to do. He has 4 of the best strength coaches on his staff. They will do a phenomenal job. Their training staff is one of the best in the country. Those guys will be ready. And I'm kind of excited to hear what they have to say about how hard our guys worked, because you're going to be like, man, we got a lot of work to do. Or like, you know what? I feel really good about this team. And I can tell you with the way that they came together during this movement and even during the pandemic, like beyond a shadow of a doubt, I believe our guys are ready because they just care that much. Like, you don't post videos like that if you don't care, right? With your teammates, you don't say, hey man, we're going to play regardless they have stands if you just don't care. Our guys care.
But Schlegel, you predicted someone's going to puke in the warm-up.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask Schlegel. I mean, as an old strength coach,
it's probably going to be a freshman.
Do you think they come back and they say? Do you think they get these guys back and they say, all right, let's find out who?
No.
Let's find out who was getting after it during this whole thing. We're going to put them. We're going to get after it here.
We lost a student athlete about, I guess, a couple years ago, and it happens quite often, right? And dadgummit, Doug. I just forgot. There's it's predominantly in African American student athletes, but like when you condition them.
Okay,
I forget the word. The word. But there's certain things when your heart rate gets above a certain thing. I totally forgot. I will find out what I'm talking about. Anyways. Listen, at the end of the day, it's not the old school. We don't do Oklahoma drill anymore, right? Like, we don't have to go out there and test them. They've already been working together as the coaches, and people have been checking on them and seeing what type of workouts. Mickey Marotti and his staff has already been sending them workouts. Right. It's really, the test will be, all right, we know that here are the workouts that you've been able to do, and you got to go all the way down to the base level and say, okay, if somebody had nothing, and they had bands and a TRX strap, and they had a field to run on, where should that guy be as he walks in doing the workouts that we prescribe to them? Because basically when they come back, all we're looking for is the GSF factor, right? Like, that's it. Like, do you care? Right. And so that's number one, because if you go out there and you just run kids, right, bad things will happen, right? Shin splints, ACLs, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, like all those things happen. That will not occur at The Ohio State University because they're smart about it. And it's not about winning in June or July or August. It's about winning and being prepared to play at a high level come first game.
I mean, I've watched the dynamic workouts. I know I would puke.
Yo, there's
but
no doubt.
I'm not saying these 85 guys.
You would go down.
I'd be dead.
For sure. Skips in the parking lot. Boom.
But, Doug, when you look at this and these guys want to get back and get back into the flow and they've been working out separately, what's the best way here for you? What are you expecting them to do in the next 6 weeks before then they get to shift then maybe to organize team activities and maybe a training camp of some sort after that?
Well, Slade hit it on the head. When it comes down, it's going to be really back to the basics. Get everybody together, see what their baseline is at, see what they've been doing on the off season, and then go ahead and take it from there. Obviously you're going to have some guys who are just crunchers and grinders who's going to come back, super tip-top shape. There's some guys you've seen videos who are actually working out with like Richard Sherman and things of that nature. So like people know when it comes down to playing at The Ohio State University what it takes to be on that football field, and they have a pedigree and a standard to keep. Then you're going to have other guys, younger guys who don't really understand, who just kind of creeped in here and it's kind of like, you know what, I've been laying on the couch playing Fortnite all COVID time. So, those guys will show. But like Schlegel said, Mick is super extraordinary at his job, at his craft. That's why he's on the head of the strength staff at Ohio State in general. And he's going to be able to see exactly what's needed in those particular parameters and be able to get these guys to win, day by day and just win those battles so they can be ready for the season. So it's going to be exciting. As a big guy, when it comes down to getting everybody together, there's a different level of like excitement or nervousness. Just that aspect of it is something that you're not going to be able to compare when you're working by yourself. So, get all those jitters out, learn those new guys' names and, just kind of come together in this particular climate. And I think these guys are going to be off to a fast start.
And Jay-Z, we've talked a number of times about what quarterbacks could do, what Justin Fields was doing. And now he can get some voluntary, throwing sessions, get his receivers back. We've talked about, like, the guys he's throwing to were not
not what
Garrett
he's going to
Wilson.
be throwing
We're not
to,
Chris Olave in Georgia. Now he's back in Columbus, and I'm sure that's going to be a big emphasis for him.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking as they talk about working out and all that stuff, I'm like, all right, when can we throw? Like, when can I get through?
He's over there trying to see if he's extender.
Yeah, right. It's like, when can we throw some 7-on-7 or, get some receivers out there and throw routes, I think that would be huge just because you're going to start working on that timing. You're going to start getting that stuff back, and you haven't had it. So, you're throwing to a different level of receiver, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You're not getting your high school buddy out there, like, hey, stand here at 15 yards. I'm going to throw it here. That's not the same as having a guy run a route, seeing him, get out of his cut and all that sort of thing. So I think that's going to be big to get the guys, if they're allowed to get on the field, 6 or 7 guys, maybe you have 3 or 4 receivers going through plays and just going through your, progressions. All right. And, it's third and this, I'm going to go here. No, I'm coming back to the backside, just doing those sorts of things, with his actual receivers, I think are going to be huge. And then we talked a lot about early in spring, those freshman receivers that were coming in. Now, they can come back and they can be under that tutelage of the quarterback, a guy who should have all the confidence in the world coming into this summer. After the way he played last year, I think he will just have that command of the offense and just getting these guys and just realizing this is what we have to do to be great. Right. And, to have them all back and, not all together, not all 100 at one time, but, to be able to get a handful of guys and say, all right, we're going to meet at this time. We're going to do this. I think that's huge, and I think that will be something that they probably look forward to more than Mickey's workouts. Right. Just getting back onto the field and actually working their way back into some football shape and doing some football drills.
So who is this most – I know it's important for everyone. So who's it most important for? Are you talking about the quarterbacks and wide receivers, Jay-Z? We know that's going to be a big deal. Offensive linemen have maybe, the toughest test when they're not away from the team. Defensive linemen as well. Like, you need to be able to touch somebody.
Right.
Who do you think this benefits most that they can get back on campus?
I mean, I'm biased. I'm gonna definitely say you win in the trenches.
Yeah.
You know, these guys are not.
I agree with that. No doubt.
You know, you're not speedsters. You're not expecting those guys to run 40s and 100 yards or run around the track. You know, they don't have that type of muscle memory.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to those guys pounding, you know, day in and day out, that's a grind and a opportunity you only can get with the difference if you don't have another guy, you know, every day in front of you. So I know me as a big guy. I was a 6'6", 275, 280 pounds in college, and you know, running those different drills day in and day out was different when you came on this campus and you had to go on those turf fields and your cleats was hot and you had to like work with your peers and you had to be able to compete with that level. So, you know, hamstring, knees, ACLs, they getting tested when you first get out there. Lower backs and shoulders and just that whole type of feeling for a guy who's 300 pounds. It's a different type of beast when you got one of those big old, you know, weights on your back when you're that big. So,
but can you get anything out of using a sled or using those bags? I mean, that's stuff that they could probably be doing without touching everybody.
Right.
You know,
and hopefully they did. Hopefully they went to a high school area and had that type of.
You can get a pretty good workout on something like that, right?
You definitely need to.
It's not
I
the
know
same, but
guys at UA right now are kind of hitting sleds and kind of hitting bags and doing just a little bit here and there because those joints, them shoulders, them elbows, they need to kind of get that tension and kind of get that memory going back. But those big boys is going to have a little bit of a challenge when you get into a mix area, and they might have a few more seconds than a wide receivers and the quarterbacks, but it's still that big old hawk on your back when that sun hits you and that them sprints get to those big digits.
And that's why you got to be aware of your personnel.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody's a little bit different, you know, and so that's the number one thing. Like during the pandemic, the one thing that you can control is your conditioning because for the most part, everybody can get out, find a field, and get in shape. Right. But however, to Doug's point, like. It is a little bit different when you're 300 pounds plus, right, versus a linebacker that weighs 240. You know what I'm saying? Or a DB or a wide receiver because it's just innate part of your game to go out there and condition.
Right.
When you're an offensive defensive lineman, you don't necessarily go do that. Like you push a sled 5 yards and then maybe run 5 more yards, right? You're not running a 50, you know what I'm saying, on your own. Like that's what the strength coach makes you do, right? So it's difficult for them. But, you know, really, I think that the number one thing that this does, and Jay-Z alluded to it, and then Doug was talking about it with the drills that you could do in the bags, but it's just getting back to a routine, which I think Ohio State is so good about creating with their student athletes, right? Like, hey, here's your time that you can come into the Woody Hayes. Here's your time and opportunity to go work on these drills that Coach Johnson can take you through. Getting back into this routine because during the pandemic, the thing was your own discipline to create your own routine wherever it was that you were living. So now to get back into a little bit of normalcy and saying, here's our routine and why we're doing it and how it's going to add value over the next 3 months. And guess what? It's going to evolve. But to get back to phase one and get in that routine with your teammates, I think is something that they're kind of looking forward to because let's not kid ourselves. I still train, but I like to be told what to do when I train. And I'm a strength coach. Right? You know what I'm saying?
Direction.
You don't have them there. That third set may not be that important. Yeah, you know, I've done 2.
That's
I feel
real.
really good.
Right? Like, I kid you not. Like, you'll be training and you're like, hey, man, you want to go another round? I'm good.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, we'll just go.
I'm going to go get some coffee.
Right?
I'm going to go sit
But
down.
when you're in that situation, it's like, no, it's not about you. It's about what coach has on the plan.
Right.
So just being able to get back to that where you have to stop thinking about your routine and your training, it's amazing.
Best
right?
advantage legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, man, iron sharpens iron, and these guys are the creme de la creme when it comes down to, you know, this particular sport. And being able to see the guy that is going to be competing for a job, it just does something to you. As young, I still feel I'm a young man. As young men, especially with testosterone going through those guys' body, they want to compete. They want to go out there and understand that this legacy of Ohio State is sitting true on their backs, and they have an opportunity, especially with COVID. Like, you know, you got some guys that probably was sitting back. But most guys on this team got to this team because they're the ones that's going to work when nobody's looking.
Right.
They're the character-tested battle guys that are going to put the work in day and day out. So when it comes down to getting these guys together as a collective, it's going to be one of those things where they're all ready, eager to kind of keep this legacy going and keeping where they went to and finish the job that they had last year.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of concern that Wyatt Davis or Sean Wade weren't handling that business, guys, with so much on the line for this season and then next year with the NFL draft. But there's still no full normal for these guys with everything going on in the world and protests and Black Lives Matter and COVID. It's still not gone. No. But this is one step in the right direction as everybody gets back to it. We're going to have all the coverage as best we can here at Lettermen Row. This has been Lettermen Live. Appreciate Jay-Z, Justin Zwick, Doug Worthington, The Difference, Anthony Schlegel, hanging out with me. I'm just Austin Ward. We'll be back here all year long covering Ohio State football. Thanks for joining us here at Roosters. See you next time.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe below to get the latest videos from Lettermen Row.
We got Lettermen Live, we've got the practice report, we got rapid reaction. Hey, and you know we got Buckeye IQ with Zach Bourne.
For sure. We got recruiting breakdowns with Berm. We got whatever you need. Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics, we've got you covered here at Lettermen Row.